Mr. Magaziner, for
Well,
5
thank you, Chairman. I appreciate it. You know, this started out as a good, productive, bipartisan hearing that I hoped it would be, and of course, now we've gone off the rails. I just want to correct the record on a few things. The Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, has reported a skyrocketing rate of anti-Semitic violence in this country after October 7th. We've also seen huge spikes in targeting of the Muslim community in the United States. And oftentimes, it is foreign terrorist organizations who are online through propaganda and otherwise trying to incite people here in the United States and divide us against each other. The synagogue in my neighborhood received a bomb threat just in the week after October 7th. That hadn't happened in years. It's not a coincidence. And so we cannot minimize, we cannot diminish, we cannot sweep under the rug the very real threat of domestic extremism in this country, which is on the rise. And by the way, even before October 7th, more Americans over the last 5 years have been killed by domestic violent extremists than by foreign terrorist organizations on the homeland. That doesn't mean that the foreign terror threats aren't real. They always have been, and they are heightened again after October 7th. But we cannot minimize, we cannot diminish the very real threat from domestic violent extremism here in the United States. And it's not just related to October 7th either. How many? 50 people killed at Pulse nightclub in Orlando for no reason other than it was a gay bar? People killed in Buffalo because they were African American, people killed in El Paso because they were immigrants by domestic violent extremists. The threat is real, and I thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your focus on it and for trying to keep Americans safe. I will also note, January 6th was a big deal, and if you think it wasn't, talk to the family members of the Capitol Police officers who lost their lives in the days following that dark event. So let's not minimize, let's not diminish. And by the way, all of these threats are real. Foreign terrorist organizations, the challenges we're having at the border are all real. But we're not going to get anywhere by minimizing or sleeping under the rug or trying to make this a partisan thing. I'm sorry. The people chanting, "Jews will not replace us" at Charlottesville, they weren't Democrats. Anti-Semitism knows no party in this country, and I can tell you that from personal experience. Nick Fuentes, the neo-Nazi, having lunch at Mar-a-Lago is not a Democrat. So neither party has a monopoly on anti-Semitism in this country, and let's not politicize that. Now, with the remaining time that I have left, Mr. Wainstein, I want to go back and give you a chance to actually have the time to respond a little bit and talk about, particularly as it relates to the southern border, the work that your office is doing to make sure that we minimize and intercept as many threats as possible. So can you please expand on the work that you are doing and the people under you are doing?
No, thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. I think I addressed a number of them, but a couple things I would like to mention. One is fentanyl. And the fentanyl threat is a huge crisis. We're losing 70,000 odd Americans a year. Untold damage to American families and economy. And it's unlike other drug threats, which, you know, were labor intensive, sometimes difficult to, you know, secrete and send across the border. Fentanyl is easy to produce. There seems to be an endless stream of precursors coming over from China. It's small and compact, can be easily secreted into a car or whatever and gotten across the border. It's really tough, and now we have sort of knockoff follow-on types of synthetic opioids. And so this is going to take an all-of-government effort, and it's going to require the executive branch, but also Congress. We are focusing on it both in terms of we're generating increased amounts of reporting on fentanyl. We're working closely in person and in regular communication with our state and local partners who are focusing on that, especially the Southwest border partners who've been very supportive of us along the border. We're, as I mentioned earlier, we are nominating people for the TOC watch list, the Transnational Organized Crime watch list, which is focusing on the border often on cartel members. And the cartels, and you know, I don't need to educate you on what the cartels are doing, but they are having an outsized effect on our national security because they are now going beyond just narcotics trafficking into human smuggling and all sorts of other licit and illicit activities. And they are, you know, they're unbelievably wealthy based on the fentanyl. So we're generating these nominations for the TOC watch list so that we can better stop cartel members and affiliates from coming across the border. Those are sort of two areas that we're ramping up our activity in.
Well, I thank you for the seriousness with which you are taking on this very big challenge and all of the challenges facing our homeland as it relates to security threats. So I thank you for that work. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I recognize